elections. This time, it is Sara Duterte resigning from her local party, the Hukbong ng Pagbabago. A week since Metro Manila shifted to a lower alert level, a presidential advisor and business leader suggests downgrade even further. Find out what health officials have to say. And singer-actress Nadine Lustre has a project in the pipeline aside from a new film and a song. Well, except for news that Sara Duterte quit her local party, the Hukbong ng Pagbabago, information is scarce about what the president's daughter's plans really are. But the country got a glimpse of how strange Philippine politics is with pictures from the wedding of Senator Bong Revilla's daughter in Silang, Cavite, where the Davao City Mayor, former Senator Bongbong Marcos, and Senator Bato de la Rosa are all principal sponsors. Now, another major move from the presidential daughter, Sara Duterte Carpio, resigning, like we said, from her local political party, the regional party Hukbong ng Pagbabago. Now, this comes days after she withdrew her re-election bid as mayor of Davao City and just days before the deadline for the substitution of aspirants in the 2022 elections. In a handwritten letter, Mayor Duterte stated, quote, "It is with profound sadness that I tender my resignation from our beloved party. My support will always be with you, and I will always be grateful for all the things you have taught me," unquote. The Secretary General of Hukbong, Anthony Del Rosario, confirmed this, saying they are saddened by her leaving, but wishes her the best in her future plans. Sara Duterte flew to Balasin Island province earlier today for the birthday celebration of her ally, House Speaker Lord Alan Velasco. Balasin Island is a luxury resort exclusive to members. Social media was abuzz that Duterte will meet with former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo and other lawmakers so that she can join the Lakas CMD political party amid speculation that she will file as the substitute candidate in a national post. Arroyo's team has denied there is a scheduled meeting in Balasin. Another ally, Representative Joey Salceda, says Mayor Duterte is likely to be Lakas CMD's standard bearer. Now, from a birthday celebration to a wedding ceremony, Sara Duterte also attending the wedding of Senator Bong Revilla's daughter in Cavite. Other political figures were in attendance, including presidential aspirants Bongbong Marcos and Bato de la Rosa. Our Rex Mito joins us live from the town of Silang. Rex, what do we know so far?
Well, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte and presidential aspirant Bongbong Marcos both attended the wedding of Senator Bong Revilla's daughter, Jana. It's the first time the two were seen together since Mayor Duterte withdrew her re-election bid, fueling speculations she would finally seek a national post next year. They shared some light moments as they were both principal sponsors the wedding of Jana Revilla and Jen Patricio in Silang, Cavite. It's not clear though if they discussed a possible battle for the 2020 elections. Although Marcos has said he will pursue the presidency, his statement comes amid talks he will slide down to be Mayor Duterte's vice presidential running mate.
So tuloy na tuloy pa rin, sir, for president?
Ako?
Yes.
For president po kayo.
Examine my situation. I have nowhere else to go. I cannot go anywhere and I cannot change. I will not change parties. I do not have. I entered this race not to play any of this substitution, play with the rules. I entered this because I felt I should run for president, and that's what I'm doing.
What if Mayor Sara runs for president?
Then she will run. What else can I say?
Mayor Duterte already resigned from her regional party Hukbong ng Pagbabago, but she has so far refused to comment on her next step, much more on Marcos's latest statement.
Mga supporters ko and I hope na kung ano mang mga mangyari sa mga sumusunod na mga araw ay maibigay ko sa kanila kung ano yung gusto nila.
Meanwhile, Lakas CMD Chair Bong Revilla says there's a possibility the mayor would join their party, but as they will still wait for her next move. Lakas CMD is led by former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. As for another presidential aspirant, Senator Bato de la Rosa, he did not address speculation. He will withdraw his certificate of candidacy as a standard bearer of the ruling PDP Laban Party. He says he will also wait for Mayor Duterte's next announcement and President Duterte's orders, saying he is a good soldier. But De La Rosa says he still prefers Mayor Duterte to run for president. He believes the presidential daughter is the most winnable among all presidential hopefuls. Now, both Mayor Duterte and Marcos have left the venue right after the wedding. They will no longer attend the reception. So up to this moment, we're still trying to know whether or not they will still meet to discuss their election plans. Back to you.
Well, Rex, what was the mood at the wedding like, given that, you have this dark cloud of uncertainty, political uncertainty hovering over them, including, well, Mayor Sara and Senator Bong Marcos and Senator Bato de la Rosa?
Well, that's right. So before the wedding, they went into a reception where different politicians were having small talk, except for Mayor Duterte, who arrived just shortly before the ceremonies have started. They exchanged pleasantries and, of course, congratulated Revilla and her daughter for her special day. It's unlikely they will discuss their plans for the 2022 elections here at the venue. They will no longer join the reception that other politicians will attend. What we know so far is that Marcos is not backing down from the presidential race, and Duterte has yet to reveal her next move. It's still unclear if it's going to be a Marcos Duterte or a Duterte Marcos. Back to you.
Rex Remigio there, reporting from Silang, Cavite. Well, Senator Bongo denies he will withdraw from the vice presidential race. Go says he has been a vice presidential aspirant under the ruling party PDP Laban for the last 40 days. But when asked about his plans, Go says the public should just wait for what's next in the coming days. The senator earlier hinted at possible changes in his bid. On Tuesday, Go was present in Malacanang when President Rodrigo Duterte met with Senator Manny Pacquiao, who is aspiring to be president also. The meeting happened months after their public word war amid tensions within their political party. Malacanang says it has no idea how the renewal of friendship between the two will affect the presidential run of the boxing icon. When pressed for more details, spokesperson Harry Roque said he was not privy to the details of the meeting other than what were relayed to him.
Ngayon po, it was a friendly meeting. It was a reunion of sorts between two leaders from Mindanao. Iwan na lang po natin doon yun sa ngayon.
Pacquiao, meanwhile, maintains he will push through with his 2022 presidential bid. In a statement, he said, quote, "Walang atrasan, tuloy ang laban," unquote. There are so far nearly 65 million people registered to vote in next year's elections. Based on the latest data from the Commission on Elections, there were 64.2 million registered voters, including 1.69 million from overseas as of September 30, when the registration period first ended. An additional 1.2 million got listed when the voter registration was extended from October 11 to 30. Over 60,000 others abroad also signed up to vote in the 2022 polls. The COMELEC has yet to consolidate the data from other field offices and is expected to release the final figures next week. Coming up on Newsnight, the presidential advisor pushes for more relaxed restrictions on travelers, but the health department says not so fast. And from a new song and acting projects to starting a company, Nadine Lustra is doing it all. Find out what's in store for fans when we return.
Niining sa pandemya, importante ang paggamit o paghatod sa hustong impormasyon. Ang pagpakalap sa peking balita o fake news may tungod sa mga bakuna batok sa COVID-19 naghatod sa kahadlok o pagduda. Tungod niini, padayon nga gipahinumduman ang publiko nga ang tanang mga bakuna epektibo o luwas nga pangdepensa batok COVID-19. Ang mga bakuna sa COVID-19 kini sa masubsob nga pagtuon o pagsusi sa mga eksperto. Dili kita basta-basta mutuo sa mga hulungihong lamang. Inay, mukuha sa mga impormasyon gikan sa kasaligan o beripikadong tinubdan. Ang taong may tiwala sa agham, makakamit ang kaligtasang inaasam. Usa ka pahinumdom gikan sa DOH, KBP ug niining Sibiyahan.
Welcome back to Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. Is it time to further ease travel and movement restrictions this coming holiday season? Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion believes it is, as a research group gives a hopeful outlook on the country's COVID-19 trends. Caroline Bonkin has more.
As restrictions in many provinces ease, independent research group Octa sees a Merry Christmas. Octa says the trend continues to go down, and the COVID situation in Metro Manila is now better even when compared to where it was in November last year.
We are at the point where we might reach a plateauing sometime soon, or the cases might decrease further because of the continued vaccination rollout. The decrease may have slowed down a little bit.
Ang COVID-19 nandito pa, nakakahawa siya, nakakamatay siya. Itong mga trends na to hindi permanente. Kung magpapabaya tayo, kung di tayo mag-iingat, maaaring mag-reverse itong mga trends na to at tumaas ang mga kaso.
If the situation continues to improve, the private sector hopes for a further de-escalation of the alert level.
By December, at least December 1, we should move towards alert level 1. If, as Professor Guido has presented, cases will continue to go down and hopefully we continue to maintain it where it is.
For Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship Joey Concepcion, there's no time to waste. Government and the private sector should take advantage of this lull in COVID spikes to vaccinate more people in the provinces. He says there would be less to worry about if more people are fully vaccinated in case of another surge.
When we say, okay, cases are going up to 1,000, 2,000, let's lock down. Let's hold back. Who are those getting infected? If it's the unvaccinated, yes, then we should be concerned. But if it is the vaccinated that are getting infected, then let's not be concerned about it. Of course, there is some risk that they will land in the hospital, but a greater percentage, 70, 80% of them will just get well at home.
The other pitch, reduce or remove quarantine restrictions for fully vaccinated international travelers. Instead, he's proposing a COVID test 48 hours before departure and another test upon arrival.
We really should open up to balikbayans wanting to come home, eventually tourists fully vaccinated.
Health Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergeres says Filipinos should not be complacent. She reminds the public COVID is still here and there's a risk of infection when more people are out and there's less compliance to protocols. She adds, while vaccines can protect us from severe COVID and help decongest hospitals, the fully vaccinated can still get sick and infect others. The Health Department earlier warned daily active cases could go up to 52,000 if more people are on the move and will put their guards down. Caroline Bonkin, CNN Philippines.
This just in some breaking news. Mayor Sara Duterte has taken her oath as a member of the Lakas CMD. Now, that oath taking happened at the wedding reception of Senator Bong Revilla's daughter in Silang, Cavite, at his home there. A press release from the office of Majority Leader, House Majority Leader Martin Romualdez came out just a few minutes ago confirming that Mayor Sara Duterte has taken her oath before him. Now, just about an hour or two ago, we got news that Sara Duterte had tendered a resignation from her local party, the regional party, the Hugpong ng Pagbabago, and now she has joined the Lakas CMD. This is the political party of former President Gloria Arroyo, who was also Pampanga Congresswoman, and also House Speaker. If you remember, it was Sara Duterte's moves that was enabled Gloria Arroyo to take over as Speaker of the House of Representatives just after, unseating then Pantaleon Bebot Alvarez. But anyway, Lakas CMD also is the political party of former President Fidel V. Ramos. This was his political vehicle in 1992 when he ran for president. Because he had broken away from the LDP at that time in 1992. It was Ramon Monching Mitra who was the administration standard bearer, and FVR had lost that vote in the LDP, so he broke away and formed the Lakas, and that is the party that Sara Duterte is joining now. So there is that news, makes things a bit clearer now that Sara Duterte is with the Lakas CMD. At the moment, there's a lot of speculation that she might be running for president with the Lakas CMD. Congressman Joey Salcedo of Albay, an ally of hers, had said yesterday that she is sure to run for president, and VP, the option to run for VP was not on the table for her. And Joey Salcedo also saying yesterday that she would be running with the Lakas CMD and not with the PDP Laban, which is her father's political party, the party of President Duterte. So we have that bit of news. Sara Duterte, like we said, taking her oath as a member of the Lakas CMD. Now let's move on. President Duterte approves the nationwide implementation of the alert level system before the year ends. The first phase is ongoing in Metro Manila, the Calabar Zone, and 5 other regions. The executive order states Ilocos, Eastern Visayas, and Soc-Sargen should adopt the system before month's end. Succeeding phases will be carried out every week until the full nationwide implementation in December. The third phase covers Cagayan Valley, Bicol region, and the Zamboanga Peninsula. The final rollout will be in the Cordilleras, Mimaropa, Caraga, and the Bangsamoro region. In the meantime, the Interagency Task Force meets to discuss the face shield mandate and quarantine protocols for incoming passengers. Some local chief executives earlier eased rules on the use of face shields, but the health department asked them to wait for the IATF's final decision. Task Force spokesperson Harry Roque says an announcement on the policies may be out tomorrow when he gets a hard copy of the resolution. Labor and employer groups raised concerns about the government's seeming approval of requiring vaccination for employment after President Duterte earlier said it was legal. The groups fear this could turn into an additional burden for job seekers. Tristan Adalo reports.
You have the right to refuse to accept as an employee of somebody who is not vaccinated.
A labor group says President Rodrigo Duterte's stand on allowing employers to refuse the hiring of unvaccinated people could put workers at a disadvantage.
Nangangamba kami dahil sa kanya mismo nanggaling ganyang polisiya, baka gayahin ng maraming mga kumpanya.
A group of employers admits mechanisms are inadequate to monitor the no vaccine, no hire policy on the ground.
Yung mga nag-a-apply, pagka gusto mo, ayaw mo siya tanggapin dahil hindi siya vaccinated, wala namang magagawa yung nagtatrabaho. Hindi mo kailangan sabihin sa kanya yun eh. But actually, we don't encourage naman, no? Considering na marami naman doon sa nag-a-apply, hindi naman vaccinated, not to the fault of theirs.
Job seeker Edwin Rabanya says he is fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Jam San Juan, another job seeker, also makes sure she's ready in case vaccination will become an employment requirement.
Opo, kailangan po eh. Kaya kami sumusunod lang din po. Yung vaccine po, ayun po lahat hinahanap kahit saan ka pumunta.
Okay na din yung yung ibang employer na nag-aano ng fully vaccinated para na rin po sa kapakanan ng bawat empleyado po.
The Interagency Task Force is set to come up with a resolution clarifying the no vaccine, no hire policy.
Ang ating mga private sector employers ay syempre pangangalagaan din po nila yung kanilang mga existing workers who are already vaccinated.
But for Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara, the law is clear that vaccination cannot be a mandatory requirement for employment.
Labor and employers group advised the government have enough vaccines first before mandating vaccination among job applicants. They also say that there is a need to make sure that local government units have enough vaccine supply to cater to the demands of workers. They also say that vaccine hesitancy is no longer the problem, but it all boils down to equal access. Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
A House panel gives the go signal on a measure seeking to suspend and reduce excise taxes on fuel products. The unnumbered substitute bill halts the higher excise tax on diesel, kerosene, and cooking gas and reduces the tax on low-octane gasoline for tricycles. The measure proposes a 6-month suspension. The excise tax on premium gasoline, meanwhile, will stay. House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Joey Salceda says taxes will be restored once fuel prices normalize. Salceda adds the House will prioritize the bill's passage, aiming to turn it over to the Senate before the month ends. Now, the Philippines vowed to step up the fight against climate change at the United Nations COP26, among the promises saving our forests in the next decade. But where is the country now in curbing deforestation? Paige Javier takes a look in this special report.
Forests are vital in a tropical country like the Philippines. They provide us with resources and protect us against the impacts of climate change. But our forests are dwindling. Data from the Environment Department shows forest cover has not grown past the average 7 million hectares in recent years. About 154,000 hectares have been lost since 2003. That's about the size of Catanduanes. At the United Nations Climate Summit, or COP26, the Philippines joined the pledge to end deforestation by 2030. But environmental groups say government needs to walk the talk.
So now that there's attention on deforestation, hopefully this translates into something more real when it comes to enforcement and management.
The country does have forest protection laws, but advocates flag the gaps in their implementation.
We do have enough forest protection and laws. The problem is really the enforcement. And so better enforcement of the law would help end deforestation.
The government launched the National Greening Program, or NGP, in 2011. A massive reforestation project designed to plant 1.5 billion trees in 1.5 million hectares in 6 years. The 2019 Commission on Audit report said the growth was marginal. From 2010 to 2015, forest cover increased by 177,000 hectares, way below the target. Groups also questioned the low survival rate of the new trees.
If you use indigenous species, obviously, the survival of the tree will be much better. It will be much better suited to sustain strong winds from storms.
Saving our forests does not stop with planting trees. We must build a culture of conservation. One example lies about 52 kilometers east of Metro Manila. The Masuni Geo-Reserve is a globally recognized geotourism hub in Rizal, a product of decades' worth of private sector-led conservation work. The group is now restoring nearly 3,000 hectares of degraded land, but various threats like land grabbers and illegal loggers are stalling their efforts.
It matters that government takes the helm, takes the lead, because enforcement is heavily reliant on them. Even up to now, we're fending for ourselves. And we have no idea where government is.
The DENR proposed arming forest rangers and creating an enforcement bureau that will deal with environmental crimes. It takes a village to bring forests back to life, and advocates hope to get more people involved in conservation. Mother Nature has been sending us a stern message. It's time to respond before it's too late. Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
Now, this breaking news just in Malacanang has announced the appointment of one more commissioner for the Commission on Elections. If you remember, there are supposed to be 7 commissioners, but there are only 6 at present, well, at least until today. This last 7th spot was vacant for quite a while. They have appointed a certain Mr. Ray E. Bulay, and Harry Roque confirming that appointment to the Commission on Elections for his term expiring on February 2, 2027. Each Comelec commissioner is given a 6-year term, and they cannot return After that, Harry Roque is saying, we are confident that Attorney Bulay will ensure the conduct of honest, orderly, credible, and peaceful elections. Now, 3 other commissioners are going to be retiring from the commission before the elections in February, and among them will be the chairman of the COMELEC, Sharif Abbas, and 2 more commissioners, and one of them, Rowena Guanzon. So that will mean that Malacanang will have to be appointing 3 more commissioners to the COMELEC. In the meantime, straight ahead on Newsnight, Nadine Lustre is partnering with Liza Soberano on a new project, not for the big screen, but for an important advocacy. And it seems everyone, including a New York landmark, is hyped up for Taylor Swift's next release. Details after the break.
Taliwala pa man sa mga kausaban sa quarantine restrictions, ipadayo nato ang pagsunod sa minimum public health standards tungod kay mao paghihapon kini ang nagunang paagi aron kapugngan ang pagkatap sa COVID-19 sa atong nasod. Aron kalikayan ang pagbalik sa mas higpit nga quarantine restrictions ug masiguro ang padayong pagbangon sa atong mga komunidad, ayuhon nato ang atong pag-amping. Gidapit nato ang tanang lokal nga pangagamhanan nga ipatuman paghihapon sa husto ang prevent, detect, isolate, quarantine, treat, reintegrate strategies ug mga safety protocols alang sa kaluwasan sa tanan. Sa lahat ng oras, tayo'y mag-ingat upang ating mga komunidad ay maingat. Usa ka mensahe gikan sa DOH, KBP ug ni ining Sibiyahan.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Triple threat Nadine Lustre is bearing even more projects, not just for her fans, but also for those in need of mental health services. The singer-actress is keeping busy with her recent release, pop single, Wait For Me. But as she told CNN Philippines earlier today, Lustre has more up her sleeves with thriller Greed in production. And alongside other celebrities, the 28-year-old has a new business that's right up her lane as a mental health advocate.
Something that I haven't really done before. Very interesting script story. Well, the title is Greed, so it's a thriller film. It's that kind of film that will make you think afterwards. You know, it the kind of film that kind of lives rent free in your head after watching it, and you kind of just wanna watch it again. So I'm working on this company called Mind You. It's with Yasi Pressman and Liza Soberano. It's a platform that will make therapists or psychologists, psychiatrists easier to, access and making it much more cheaper.
Now, in the interview, the star also talked about plans to move to Siargao Island in Surigao del Norte, a place that has helped with her mental wellness. Swifties are also gearing up for an exciting return. One of Taylor Swift's award-winning albums is getting re-released tomorrow. Red Taylor's version includes 30 tracks. Among these is a duet with Ed Sheeran and a much-awaited 10-minute version of All Too Well. Taylor fever has also reached the Empire State Building in New York, which, as you can see, lit up in red in anticipation of the album's arrival. Swift is re-recording her previous albums to gain control over her discography after her songs were sold to another music producer without her consent. It is 44 days before Christmas, and that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXKO. 13:68 sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPM DXKO, ang Radyo Ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sibiyahan na may galaon sa katawhan, andam mo serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXK Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
More than 176 people want to join the senatorial race. There are 12 seats up for grabs. Among the aspirants is an advisor to the Health Department and the president of the iBank Foundation. Let's now get to know Dr. Mingita Padilla. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Ruth, and good evening to everyone who's watching tonight.
Maybe the first question I would like to ask you, Dr. Padilla, why do you want to move from the medical field to politics?
Actually, Ruth, it was a leap of faith, but what I had to do and hope that somebody would catch me because the call was coming little by little, getting louder and louder. But the last straw was the pandemic and the response of the government, which we really felt was there was no sense of urgency. And there were so many things which could have been done better. Then the final straw was all the corruption that we saw. The Pharmaly, the PSDBM, the 42 billion transfer to the DOH, whereas so many of our colleagues were crying for PPEs, using garbage bags for PPEs. So many were dying, and there seemed to be so much unadulterated, obscene profiteering amidst all the suffering. So when you're faced with that, and then my colleagues were begging me, we need a doctor in the Senate, somebody who knows what it's like to practice, somebody who's also served the country in my own way as in the private sector, who has worked with government as an advocate, and sometimes frustrated advocate at that. I think everything, snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. And afterwards, I kept asking for signs from God, and I got it. And the call was so strong. And despite the fear and the sadness in a way, because I have to leave my patients, I cannot continue as it was. The call is stronger than the fear. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because if I don't do it, I'll regret it the rest of my life. So we have to try.
Dr. Padilla, you already mentioned yung ibang nakita nyo na sort of how the government allegedly mismanaged the COVID-19 crisis. But how would you have handled it? Like balancing lives and livelihood, like the implementation of the lockdowns, and also yung benefits for our medical frontliners?
Well, I think I've always maintained in all my interviews that there was a lack of sense of urgency, that instead of locking down right away or closing borders right away, they were still thinking of hurting the feelings of China. Vaccines could have been more made available earlier, because we heard complaints even from some diplomats that the Philippines didn't seem serious because there were so many innuendos, but no serious deals, no serious. They kept flirting, but they were not serious, something like that. I mean, it was like there was no sense of urgency, and it seemed that they were thinking about deals more than public welfare. And I know for a fact there was a tug of war all the time between those wanting to do their job earnestly and those thinking of profits. And this tug of war delayed so many things. Now, the granular lockdowns would have been better than the draconian lockdowns, except that we didn't have the capacity because our infrastructure, our health infrastructure, would not have been able to take it. So the initial draconian lockdown was, I think, necessary. But after that, we should have gone into granular lockdown if we had just tested more often, mass testing, better contact tracing. So much could have been done better. But this is all hindsight, okay? And now we have our vaccines, although we should ramp it up. And definitely the healthcare providers, the health workers, they are taken for granted. They have been taken for granted so long, and they're asking for so little: food allowance, transportation allowance, hazard pay. And then, I was at a rally this morning at the Senate, and I could really feel their pain when they were talking about, you don't want to give us, you only gave 20% of us those benefits. and we see all this money allegedly or apparently going into the pockets of so many people, and yet you cannot give us what's due us. And you're now angry at us when some of us go abroad for greener pasture, and you say we have no malasakit, we have no compassion for our country. But what did you do to us? You know, it was a nurse was in tears saying these things, and this is how we feel. We doctors are hurt. We are hurt, and that's why this is also the source of the statement of indignation, which over 600 of us have already signed, which is very rare. Indignation and call to action. We cannot go on this way, not just for us, but for the future. This sort of corruption, which I think is we consider heinous, because it really cost deaths. It robbed us of life. It robbed us of a chance to recover faster from this pandemic. It cannot go on, and we cannot condone it, and we cannot turn our backs to it. It must change.
So, Dr. Padilla, how do you plan to combat what you're calling heinous corruption?
Well, as a senator or now?
Yeah, well, as a senator also.
Yeah, well, now we want accountability. We want the Senate to come up with the correct report. We want people to be charged. We want everything to be coming to the conclusion. We will not allow cover-ups, and we will call attention to it if we feel our intelligence is being insulted by the cover-ups, because sometimes it's so blatant that even you don't have to be a genius or educated to see that there's a cover-up. Even the most ordinary person in the street will say, ano ba naman yan? Napaka-obvious naman yan. Masyado naman tayong niloloko, no? Ginagawang tanga. They even say that, no? So we will have to be vigilant, and we will call out. We doctors who are usually so quiet, we're just so involved with our patients, we will call out what we see. And if it's not correct, then we will do something about it. And I think some of us will actually also file charges in court. So we're not going to wait for the Senate to do so, but I hope they do so. But some private citizens will also file charges in court.
In your previous interviews, and you're also the co-convener of Doctors for Truth and Public Welfare, you have given a lot of importance on the fight against misinformation, especially in terms of sa healthcare, no? Just how important is that, and what do you plan to do about it?
Well, if given the chance to be a senator, one of my priorities will be also to see how we can combat medical misinformation. Never mind the misinformation is just, nakakatawa, like this guy was kidnapped by a marshal or something like that. But if it's medical information, especially the kind that scares people, that prevents people, from getting vaccinated, which we know unequivocally saves lives. Vaccines save lives. All the statistics in the world have shown that. For every 10% increase in your vaccination, your hospitalization goes down by 40+% for every 10%. So can you imagine if you're stopping that because of medical misinformation? We ought to have a law. And we also need to educate our students. Maybe this is in connection with that, digital knowledge. How do you tell fake news from truth? And how do you also prevent predators from attacking or endangering our youth? This is all related, okay? May I say something also about moving on, how we can recover from COVID, from these lockdowns, how our economy can recover? Ruth?
Yes, go ahead.
May I say something about that? Because, I think almost all scientists around the world have now agreed that we're going away from the zero COVID to living with COVID. Because if we want zero COVID before we become normal or have some normalcy, we will not recover. We are one of the worst performing countries in the world. And according to Secretary Carl Chua himself, it will take us about 10 years to really recover. But we can hasten this, okay? One is we have to learn how to live with COVID. And the only way to do that is to ramp up vaccinations and to test frequently. We cannot just limit ourselves to PCR. And I'm glad to see that in many areas, in many offices, in many government agencies, they're using the antigen test because this is the one that's very practical. So we can go about our daily lives more freely. But as far as vaccinations are concerned, we have to now look outside NCR because this is the problem. We have to vaccinate before the surges come. Let's not wait for the surges. Because many of these places, once they have a surge, you'll have more deaths because they don't have the health infrastructure to deal with the surges.
Okay,
So
Dr. Padilla, yeah. Also, outside of the medical field, we also want to hear about your economic agenda, maybe in terms of fighting poverty alleviation or, ensuring more job security, maybe?
Yeah, well, of course, you know that the health will always be related to jobs, okay? Because if you have, like what we saw, the pandemic, the whole world stopped. We lost jobs, etc. But I'd like also to focus on, can I also focus on the neglected parts or neglected sectors of society, which are the farmers and the fisher folk? Because they are in dire straits, and our country is in danger of losing our farmers if we do not pay attention to them. I have been holding dialogues with them, and although there were laws supposedly to empower them and to make their situation better, they have not been implemented. So I will try to look into the benefits for the fisher folk and the farmers. Okay, and this is. Imagine we're an agricultural country. We cannot possibly be dependent on imports because one day the weapons of war will be food. And if we don't have our own food production, we will be very vulnerable to other countries. Imagine that, because we never took the time to develop our agriculture and we neglected our farmers. So food security is one way, and of helping our economy, helping the least of our people. Now, as far as the jobs now, I think we have to continue where we're going now, which is opening up the economy slowly, making sure that we have some semblance of normalcy, while also ensuring that we have agile or flexible mechanisms to keep the cases at a manageable level. We should stop thinking of cases now per se. We should already base our decisions and base our opinion of whether we're doing okay or not on hospitalizations, because COVID, once we have been vaccinated, and then we have to ramp up the production of tablets like molnupiravir, which we like to be an antibiotic, then our lives can go back to normal. And as soon as we have that confidence, our economy will grow and we'll have jobs again.
Okay, we will continue this up-close conversation with Dr. Minguita Padilla after a quick break. Stay tuned to CNN Philippines.
Your locally produced glutinous rice cake comes in mango, green tea, ube, and assorted flavored packs. Regent Mochi Japanese-style glutinous rice cake by Regent.
Gumagaan ang inuman pag sandiglay. Hoy, musta?
Ako, stressed sa work, kaya ini-imagine kong nasa beach ako. Ako, busy sa paglaba at pagluto, kaya ini-imagine ko, nag-iit-olokin tayo.
Ako, ini-imagine ko yung bar dati. Laging masaya. Kasi miss ko na kayo. Buti na lang, may San Mig Light dito sa tindahan.
Pagtapos ng mabigat na araw, mag-inuman with friends and San Mig Light. 100 calories lang.
Magaan sa tiyan. Ulitin natin to. Ang alin? Mag-imagine? Hindi. Mag-inuman.
This is the final word on CNN Philippines. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ruth Cabal. We continue our up-close conversation with senatorial aspirant Dr. Minguita Padilla. Doctor, I just want to know what you plan to do with the war on drugs. How do you plan to handle that?
Okay. But before I go on the war on drugs, can I just say a few more words about poverty? Just a few more words.
Go ahead.
Because I forgot to mention that come next year, the new budget, the Mandanas ruling of the Supreme Court will come into effect, meaning LGUs will be getting more funds, not 27.6% more than they are today. And we need to make sure that these funds are able to improve the economy in the LGUs, especially in the very poor communities, okay? So that needs a very close monitoring by the DILG and the various other line agencies. Make sure that they have deliverables. It should be results-oriented. So you have the money, but we must see results, and that needs oversight. And as a senator, we will make sure we have oversight, whether it's health, it's agriculture, and other devolved functions of government. So it's full devolution. Okay. Now the war on drugs. The war on drugs. I used to be the president of the Drug Abuse Research Foundation, or DARE. Okay. So we had a very, very successful drug rehabilitation program. But you must remember, the drug addicts need a lifetime of healing. You cannot just say, okay, tapos ka na sa rehab mo, you're okay. No, you need a lifetime of healing. And the best support comes from the community. So it has to be a community-based response. We must go after the big fish. We must go after the pushers. We must go after the drug lords. But please, do not go after the users, per se, or the small time. You have to heal them. You have to heal them. I know that there's a lot of criminality behind drugs. I know that. But I also know that so many of these addicts can have a better life if they have the right guidance. So we had a very nice system in there, and a lot of the church groups and the community groups can do that also. So let's think of it as a disease, okay, but a lifelong disease. In other words, it's just like being an alcoholic. You have Alcoholics Anonymous. Recovering drug addicts need a lifetime to heal, and they need the support of the community. They should not be discriminated upon. They should be supported. This we can do, actually, through programs in the community. And we can make that one of our projects as well.
Dr. Padilla, for the last part of our interview, we have a series of questions that you should just answer with yes or no. No explanation needed, okay? First question, do you favor easier public access to the SALN of the President, Vice President, and members of Congress?
Definitely yes.
Do you support lifting foreign ownership limits in the Constitution? Yes or no?
Some of it, yes.
Yes.
Some.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you favor the reimposition of death penalty for drug-related crimes?
Now, I would have to say no.
Should a sitting president be allowed to run for vice president in the next election?
No.
Do you favor resuming peace talks with communist rebels?
Yes, to a certain extent.
Should the country be more aggressive in protecting its maritime interests in the West Philippine Sea?
Definitely yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for joining The Final Word, senatorial aspirant Dr. Mingita Padilla.